Hello and welcome again to AquaChat. My name is Dr. Russell Breckwalt. And today, episode 2, What the H? If you have any comments, feel free to get in contact with us and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So in our first episode, we discussed if you went to the store and came home with an empty tank, how do we get that tank prepared to put fish in it where they will survive? In this episode, we're going to talk more about some of the properties of water and how to maintain them for our fish. Without further ado, episode 2, What the H? And the reason we're calling it What the H is we're going to talk about 3, what I'll call properties of water, or 3 things that describe water quality. And that is pH, GH, and KH, and how they interact with each other. So let's start off with pH. This may be a term that you've heard of before. And I may be mentioning some chemical terms or terms of chemistry here. And I don't think it's necessary that you have to understand chemistry in general, but I'm just going to mention these things as descriptive terms. So pH actually stands for the power of hydrogen. And what it measures is the concentration of hydrogen ions in your tank or in water in general. pH is on a scale from 0 to 14. 7 is what is considered neutral. Those values that are less than 7 are said to be acid or acidic. Those values that are above 7 are said to be basic or alkaline. I tend to use the word alkaline, so that's the word that I'm talking about, meaning the pH is above 7. Now, just as all fish are not the same, neither is all water. And depending upon where your fish originate from, the pH can greatly vary. And the examples that I'll give will be many of the fish that come from the Amazon River Basin in South America tend to be in very acidic water. Sometimes the pH is in the ranges of 4 to 5. Comparatively, the cichlids from the African Rift Valley lakes, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Victoria, and Lake Malawi, the water there is somewhere in the range of pH of 8 to 9. So it's important to know what pH your fish live at and what they prefer. The fish are very adaptable. They will do well in a wide variety of range of pH. But I think you should strive to try to attain the pH that they're accustomed to. Now, if left to its own, what I mean by that is the tendency of a fish tank is to have the pH drop. And this is because of the accumulation of waste products and organic acids and the like. So if we did nothing else, the pH would continue to drop and drop and drop, which would be detrimental to the inhabitants of the tank. So this will bring in H number 2, which is KH. And KH stands for carbonate hardness. Carbonate, spelled with a K, is more of a German derivative. But what KH really is measuring is the buffering capacity of the water in your tank. How well your water will resist fluctuations in pH. One thing that fish do not really like are rapid swings in things such as pH or temperature, that kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is maintain consistency. Now, KH is usually expressed in either parts per million or degrees of KH. Parts per million is basically just that. If you had a million total marbles and 3 of them were blue and the rest were yellow, that would be, in terms of the blue marbles, 3 parts per million. Degrees of hardness is just a range. To be honest with you, it's usually just a range of parts per million. There are several products on the market today to help you maintain your carbonate hardness. One of the more common ones, and one, in my opinion, that I think is very easy to use, is something called aragonite. And aragonite is just a mineral form or a type of calcium carbonate. And calcium carbonate is, of course, limestone. This is available in either a sand or sort of a small pebble form. It's very commonly used in saltwater aquaria. It is also very commonly used in the previously mentioned African Rift Valley cichlid tanks. And you just add this to your aquarium a little bit at a time and measure your KH to the value that you want it at. KH will influence the pH a little bit. The higher the KH is a tendency for the pH also to be a little bit on the high side, but these situations, usually the tanks are quite stable. The last H we're going to talk about is GH, or general hardness. And general hardness is a measurement specifically of calcium and magnesium in your water. Those which have a low mineralization are said to be soft. Those which have a high mineralization are said to be hard. And once again, depending upon what part of the world you're from, your water can be either. We'll go back to our example. Many of the fish that come from the South American Amazon River Basin, the water there tends to be quite soft. We'll contrast that with our buddies from Africa, again, the Rift Valley cichlids, where the water there is extremely, extremely hard. General hardness, again, is not unlike KH, is expressed in either degrees of hardness or in parts per million. Now, all 3 of these parameters can influence each other, but they are in of themselves separate entities. As previously mentioned, it is possible, say, to have a high KH, and the calcium in there will tend to drive your pH up a little bit. So yes, they can influence each other, but you have to look at them as, again, separate unto themselves. Now, how do we test for this? There are several test kits that are available on the market today that will test all 3 of these parameters. And they either come in sort of a dipstick form or sort of the mad scientist, where there's a little test tube and you add some drops and look for a colorimetric change. In my opinion, and that's what this is, I think the test strips are very inexpensive and they're very quick. They'll definitely give you an answer. In my opinion, their accuracy is a little questionable. In me personally, I think that the kits that come with the little test tube and the drops, I think, are a lot more accurate. Now, when to test? I don't know if there's necessarily a great answer for that. There are some tendencies that people do. And in my opinion, and I'll just speak for what I usually do. I will usually test my tank about a day or 2 after I've cleaned the water. And this is to see, now that fresh water is in there, some of the quote old water's out, where am I sitting? And then I'll test it the day of cleaning. So say 6, 7, 8 days go by, and you can compare after cleaning to the day that you clean it. And it's going to give you an idea, again, of how far things are changing, if they are at all. If you have values that really aren't changing, week to week or month to month, then your tank is quite stable. But for me, the thing I'm looking for specifically is the KH and the pH mostly. What I'm trying to do there is try to keep that as consistent as possible. Again, we talked about today that fish don't like rapid changes. So the more stable you can keep things over time, the better off that your fish are going to be. Another thing that should be tested is your water source. Test the water coming out of the tap that you're using. If you're using well water, and again, this you may have to make changes based on what you're putting in the tank. If the water, like I'll just give you for an example, where I currently live in the southeastern United States, the water coming out of the tap is a pH of 8.2, but the KH is very low. It's only 3 degrees of KH, so it's not very well buffered water. So depending upon what tank I'm in, I may or may not have to address that. Know the preferences of your fish of pH, KH, and GH. And again, try to copy that as close as you can. Fish are tolerant. They are. They can tolerate a wide range of things. But I believe in the long run, you will get more longevity out of your fish. You'll get better colors, and I think that they will be less stressed. So pH, KH, and GH are more descriptive terms, I think, describing your water. What we're looking for is stability. That's the big thing. And do a little research. Different fish usually prefer different parameters. And again, try your best to try to hit these parameters. In the long run, your fish will be better for it. As always, we appreciate you listening. Again, any comments, just drop us a line. We'll get back to you. This has been Russell Breckwald for AquaChat. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.